folks. Time to blow the shofar before we get the party started. We want to, oh, I should have wore this t-shirt here without these buttons. See how it says pick Jesus? Pick Jesus, man. Get tight with Christ. Get tight with Christ. And pick Jesus. You know? Okay, let's blow the shofar. I got two shofars. I got a high-pitched one here. That was sent to me from our sister. And here's my other shofar. Yes, we will. Oh, hey, you don't hear me? David says no sound. You guys hear me? Let's see. Is it just David that doesn't hear me? Okay, so people can hear me. Maybe it's just you, David. Okay, most people can hear me. It's just David. David, maybe you got to turn your volume up or something, bro. But we're going to be hearing that trumpet sound. We'll be hearing that trumpet sound. So I wanted to come on and say, hi, guys. I got stuff to share, and I also wanted to sort of answer some questions, too. There are a lot of questions with a lot of things, Feast of Weeks and Rapture stuff, and I don't really have, I have a bunch of notes, but I just kind of wanted to just get on here and just start saying stuff. And then I like my short videos too, where I'm organized and concise and right to the point, but sometimes you got to just blab on for a while and say a lot of things and answer questions directly right in the moment. So there we go. So we're talking about Feast of Weeks. I am looking forward to Feast of Weeks. Feast of Weeks. Yeah, pick Jesus. This is a guitar pick, just in case you don't get it. I'm a musician. I'm a music teacher and all that stuff. Used to be anyway before the channel, but that's a whole other story. So yeah, I'm going to blab away, as Pierce77 just says. I'm just going to blab away. I probably have like 40 things to say. I'm going to try and answer questions too along the way. And so we're just in the living room together chatting like a brother and sister would, or a brother and a brother. And we're just going to bounce around, hit some scripture, review things, remind you of things, all that kind of stuff, okay? First things first. My thumbnail on this video, I said, I showed that there's an eagle, right, in the constellation. So we're going to put up Stellarium first. And then we're going to just bounce around and see where the spirit leads, if you will, So if I just, does it matter? Does it make a difference if doesn't make a difference in size? Okay, so we're just going to do that. Then we'll just do that. Okay, that's fine. So you guys remember this whole fascination with the child asteroid going through the constellation of Virgo? If you've been watching for a while, there is a constellation called Virgo. And again, I'm just going to talk as if some people don't know what's going on, but I'm not going to just go too slow that the people that are advanced, get bored. So there's this constellation called Virgo. Where is Virgo? Where are you, Virgo? Well, let's do this instead. We'll just do this. Child. There's an asteroid called Child. And that went through the constellation Virgo. And right now it's in Aquila, but let's go back 9 months. Let's go back to Feast of Trumpets. Feast of Trumpets is a fall feast on the 7th month, first day. Okay. And it's right over yonder, right here. Now look at this child asteroid, folks. See this child asteroid right here? It's coming, you can almost say it's going into the womb on September the 16th. The child asteroid. This whole tribulation, this whole concept of, Jacob's trouble is a woman being in travail. It's a woman being in travail. And so we have this child asteroid entering or exiting the womb, however you want to say it. It's on September 16th. Isn't that amazing? So that happened, and we were all excited about maybe the rapture was going to happen on Feast of Trumpets, and of course it didn't. And but we got to continue on, right? So how about 9 months after the Feast of Trumpets? How about that? It lands you on September the 16th, and it just give me 1 second here. Yep, there we go. And I'm going to bump it over to September 16th. And it's under the wing of the eagle. And so, isn't that fascinating? We got the child under the wing of the eagle. Now, of course, nobody knows when the day is going to happen. We don't know when the rapture is going to happen. I've been doing this for about 4 years. I keep on going through all the feast days. But this year, for some reason, I'm just so impressed with the Feast of Weeks in so many different ways. But look at the stars. The stars are saying a story. Now, the child is under the wing of the eagle. We're going to read a couple verses there. In fact, you know what? Let's read them now while we got this picture in view. Exodus 19 is when Moses is at Mount Sinai getting the marriage covenant from God. So the Israel or the Jewish people understand that in Exodus 19 it was a ketubah. It was a time that God was proposing essentially to Israel. It was like a wedding. It was like a wedding proposal. And it's the Feast of Weeks, and it's Exodus 19. And just so you guys know, I believe that Feast of Weeks is on June 16th. I can talk about that later as to why, but I shared that in a video earlier today too. But Exodus 19, we have something in verse 4. And it says this: "You have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings." So you see this picture in front of you. You see an eagle. And you got the child, which could represent us, under the wings of an eagle at this time on June 16th, at the time of Feast of Weeks. So Exodus 19 verse 4 says, "You have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." Wow. Bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Wow, that's impressive. That's very impressive. So we got an eagle's wings thing in here. Also, Psalm 91, verse, I think it's 4 as well. Let's just go pull it up, and I'll keep the picture on here just for added suspense here, the picture of the eagle. Psalm 91. I'll just read the first few verses. "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him I will trust. Surely He will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence." Verse 4, "He shall cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you shall take refuge." So that's interesting that Exodus 19 verse 4 and Psalm 91 verse 4 are essentially saying the same thing. He's going to rescue you under the wings of the eagle, right? But do you see the reverse of the chapter? Exodus 19, Psalm 91. You just reverse the chapter. It's kind of the same thing, right? So there, let me show you in a different way. I'll share my my Bible app here. So I just got to maybe I just share my. I'll just do it this way. So we'll go like that. So King James, we'll just use that, and we'll just show you Psalm 91 verse 4, and we'll make it a little bigger, and go like that. Okay. "He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler." So that's Psalm 91 verse 4. And if we reverse these two numbers, 91, and we make it 19, well, Exodus 19 verse 4, you got the same kind of message here. "I bear you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself." Now this, in Exodus 19, is during the Feast of Weeks, or Shavuot, the time that this is known as the marriage covenant with Israel. All right. So there's that. We'll hide that on the stream. So we have this phrase called the trumpet of God. And you don't actually see it in the scripture a whole lot when you see the trumpet of God, but you see it in Exodus 19. You also see it in Zechariah 9, verse 14. And you also see it in the most popular rapture verse in the Bible. You see it in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, where it says the trump of God. So let me show you that. So we'll do that. We'll do this, and we'll go over here. And we'll go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. And it says, for the Lord God, for the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with a voice of an archangel, and with a trump of God. So here's that phrase, the trump of God. It's actually a very rare phrase to see the trump of God in the Bible. And the dead in Christ will rise first. So we've got the trump of God at 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16. But then we have that same phrase in Exodus 19 during the Feast of Weeks, which is very rare. And that's over here, Exodus 19, verse 16. And it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. Whoa, because we heard the voice of God, the trumpet of God. And then Exodus 19, verse 19, and when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, Moses spake, and God answered him by a voice. So we have this grand meeting here in Exodus 19. It's the trumpet of God. We compare it really easily to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 when it's talking about the rapture. We see that in Exodus 19, it's on the wings of an eagle that you were taken out. Okay, and so yeah, that is very interesting, very, very interesting. Some people think that the Feast of Weeks is on a different day. So let's explain why it's got to be on a Sunday. It has to be on a Sunday, and I'll explain why with the Bible. And it's just got to be on a Sunday. So it's Leviticus. I'll just open up the app once again. I usually read my my Bible, my hard copies. And then I go to this later. So when I do live streams, sometimes I don't have things highlighted and bookmarked and all that stuff. But here's the big one. Okay, this is why it has to be a Sunday, and the Feast of Weeks will always be on a Sunday. And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath. Okay, so the morrow after the Sabbath is a Sunday. A Sabbath is always a Saturday. A Sabbath is always a Saturday. A Sabbath is always a Saturday. So he shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath. So your starting date is going to be a Sunday, because that's when you start your count. That's Leviticus 23, verse 15. Okay. From the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. But even the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days. Okay, so this is telling you that your end result is going to be after the 7th Sabbath. Right there. Okay. So that's telling you that it's going to be a Sunday right here. Okay. So there's your Sunday right here. I'll highlight it purple. So it's basically saying, and you shall count from a Sunday, count 7 weeks, and then your end count is going to end on a Sunday as well. Okay. So just for a second, ignore the sun, ignore the moon just for a second. Leviticus 23 is not talking about the sun or the moon or where it is and all that stuff in the beginning of the year. It's Feast of Weeks specifically. You must count from a Sunday, and the count must end on a Sunday. That's how it will always be for the future of humanity and for the history of humanity. Since he's instituted this Feast of Weeks, it's always been on a Sunday. So now it's just a matter of which Sunday do you pick. Well, it says ye should count from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering. So you have to pick the Sunday after Jesus rose right? So that's why this year, in this particular year, when we are observing Passover in late April, we're starting from April 28th. And then you do all the math. So April 28th, you add 50 days, it lands you on June 16th. Now, if we're going to correct it at all, if you think it's a different date, the only other date I would consider would be a later date of June 23rd. But the problem with that is it's officially past the summer equinox. So that doesn't really fit that great. So June 16th is pretty tight, pretty solid, pretty bulletproof in Aaron's perspective on how we read Leviticus 23:15. So I'm just going to say this one more time, because I know I'm a human, and not everybody understands this. And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath. So the Sabbath is a Saturday. Sabbath will always be a Saturday. So that's telling you should start the count from a Sunday. And from that day, you'll count 7 Sabbaths, even into the morrow after the 7th Sabbath. Then you shall number the 50 days. So your ending date is going to be a Sunday, and your starting date is going to be a Sunday. And that's it. That's all. That's how Feast of Works works. Feast of Works work. Feast of Weeks works. Yowzers. Wow. Tongue twister. So there you go. So June 16th is pretty solid. So now, since we got their Bible app up, this was on TW Tram. Oh, by the way, I talked with TW Tram for a good about an hour today. We had a great conversation. I've asked him if he wants to join a live stream in the future. He said he'll think about it. So you never know. We might have a live stream in the future. But G616, there's 2 times you see it in the New Testament, and that's in James. That's James 1:15. And so why don't we get it up? Why don't we pull James 1:15 through 18? Because June 16th, that's a really special day. We've talked about the Bakar. We talked about how it's the first fruits. It's the time when you would present the firstborn. It's certainly we're talking about wheat, but that word Bakar is also used in the context of when a woman gives birth to a child. Isn't that incredible? Now, James 1:15 through 18, we have this Strong's G616, in other words, June 16th. So let's just read James 1:15 through 18. Then, when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Of his own will begot he us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Okay, are you guys seeing this? So this word begot, first of all, let's tackle that Greek word, and that's apako, and that means bring forth. Okay, so to bring forth, it's almost like another word for birth, in a way. Okay, bring forth, it's right here as well, bring forth. Well, this says bring forth death over here in James 1:15, but it's also bring forth a first fruits. Whoa. Bring forth a first fruits. That's what Feast of Weeks is. It's a first fruit. But what is it? It's a first fruit of the firstborn. It's a gift unto, the 2 loaves is a gift unto our Father, right? So we are the 2 loaves of bread in the Feast of Weeks that are the first fruits. But James 1:18 is talking about giving the first fruits, but the Strong's number is 616. Is God telling us that the first fruits is on 616 with the Strong's number here? So that's a blessing to see that, and the first fruits is a beginning of a sacrifice that is a Jewish first fruits. It's an offering, right? And so, okay, G16, okay, whatever. It's just Greek. It's just the G616. What about this Hebrew 616? Well, that's equivalent to the word for prisoners. And so, without me, they shall bow down under the prisoners, and they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, to open the blind eyes and bring out the prisoners. So Isaiah 42 verse 7, H616. So let's go over there. Isaiah 42 verse 7. To open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and then sit in the darkness out of the prison house. So let's go back one verse. I, the Lord, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and give thee for a covenant, the berith. That's another. And when God made the rainbow, he was giving us a covenant. Oh man, this is another wild thing too. A lot of the covenants happened in the third month of the year. You can go to the book of Jubilees. Okay, let me just come back to that covenant thing. I'm just talking out loud. Thanks for letting me talk out loud here. To open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners. So the prisoners were, the number is H616, to bring out the prisoners from prison. And we spiritually are prisoners in this fallen world right now. So we're looking for our Redeemer, our Jesus, to come and get us out of this prison cell, in a sense. So to open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners, the H616 from prison, and them to sit in darkness out of the prison house. Okay, go back to the word covenant. A lot of the covenants, if we look to the book of Jubilees, I know the Jubilees is not in the canonized version of the Bible, but this is another video that I might have to get a bit more organized. But in the book of Jubilees, if I'm not mistaken, the covenant was given to Noah in the third month. The covenant was also given to Abraham in the third month. The marriage proposal was given to Israel in Exodus 19 in the third month. I think there was a few other covenants that were given. Essentially, I think that there's a lot of transitional times in the third month. New covenants, new agreements. And I was speculating when I was talking to T.W. Tram. I was like, I wonder when the Davidic covenant happened in 2 Samuel chapter 7, when God told David, hey, I'm going to give you, the Messiah is going to come from your seed. And I wonder if that happened in the third month. That would be another side study to check out there. So, all right, so there's some notes that I wanted to say. We have leaven. We got leaven. Man, that's a whole other subject to talk about. Where's my little... I drew a rainbow today, man. I drew a rainbow. Where did I put that rainbow picture? I don't know, man. Where did I draw it? Where did I put it? I got all these papers. Oh, here it is. It's under my Bible. It's under my Bible. All right, I'll show you this right now. I'll probably do a video in the future. But get this picture in your mind. I think this is a really cool picture. So we got a rainbow, and that's God's rainbow. Okay, and just remember that there's 7 colors in the rainbow. And here we are. We're approaching Pride Month, and Pride Month they've got 6 colors in the rainbow. But we go with God's colors, not with man's colors, and God's colors are 7. But if you look at this, we all need to know that Feast of Weeks is the time when so many covenants were made. Like I said, the Noah covenant, the Abraham covenant, the Israel covenant, or at least the marriage proposal. If you believe that Feast of Weeks is Shavuot, then you would say that happened in the third month, et cetera, et cetera. Ages and dispensations changed at the Feast of Weeks, or at least in that season. But the thing is, the Feast of Weeks is so dependent on the timing of the Passover week, specifically the Feast of First Fruits, right? So keep that in your mind. We got Passover, and we've got 7 Sabbaths, right? So we've got 7 colors representing the 7 Sabbaths. He didn't just say, I drew the. You know what? I didn't draw it. I'll tell you what I did. I printed it off. I found just like a coloring thing online, and I printed it off. Sorry if the colors are not exactly right. I was just using crayons that I found earlier on. But so I didn't draw it. I just colored it in. Okay, I just colored it in. But what we have here is we can see that these 2 feasts are related to each other. They're both very special, of course, and they're both connected to each other. One, Feast of Weeks is nothing without Passover. And you can see this through the rainbow. You can see this through the image, right? So again, 7 colors. It says 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Then after the 7th Sabbath, on the 50th day will be your Feast of Weeks. Now, the Passover week, it's like it's like a little bit more than a week when you include Nisan 14 and the week of unleavened bread. And also, Nisan 13, here's the other thing too. Another cool thing is, I forget what the Hebrew phrase is. It's called, oh boy, I don't remember what it's called. But there's some sort of a feast that happens on Nisan 13. It's like the Hebrew words essentially translate to the Last Supper. It's like having the last meal before the Passover meal. So when Jesus was having his Passover meal with his disciples, it was a bit of a private thing, but that's what you would do. You would have a meal on Nisan 13 the night before the corporate Passover for the nation. And I can't remember the phrase of it. It's some sort of fancy word. Shamara huga haba, something like, something really, a lot of words, a lot of letters. But there's something special about Nisan 13, which makes the Gospels really make a lot of sense when you understand that Nisan 13 was actually the day that you're supposed to have your private meal. So that might be a future video as well. But back to the rainbow. We've got Passover and the Feast of Weeks. And so Feast of Weeks is dependent on Passover, but specifically it's dependent on the Feast of First Fruits. But the Feast of First Fruits, when Jesus rose, was the Feast of Rashith. That's how you'd say it, Rashith or Rashit. And that's the same word, that's Bereshit. That's the same word in the first word in the Bible. So Jesus was our Rosh, and the root word is Rosh. He's our head. He is our prince. He is our king. He is our everything. He rose on first fruits, right? And then 50 days later, from the time that he rose, there's this one-day feast. It's only one day. And then in the fall, there's all those things. There's the trumpets, there's the atonement, there's the Feast of Tabernacles. There's a big hoopla over there. But Feast of Weeks is only one day. That's all it is. It's one day. One day. All this counting, all this anticipation, all this hoopla for one day. One day, that's all it is. Right in the middle. And not only is it just one day, you know how many sacrifices and stuff you got to offer? My goodness, it's like you need a big pickup truck to drag everything in there. Okay, give me the 7 lambs, give me the other 2 lambs, give me some bread, give me some goats, give me some bulls, give me some oxes, give me some drink offerings, it's like, oh my goodness, I need a pickup truck to bring all that stuff in, man. There's a lot of stuff going on. That's on the Feast of Weeks. Okay, it's like a big one-day party, and it's right in the spring. It's the last Sunday of the spring in this particular year, because the summer equinox is June 20th or something like that, which I talked about. But the reason why I wanted to show this too is this word leaven. This might be another small video. Yeah, Liz has got the rhinos. Yeah, when the King James says unicorn, I think the intention was rhino. That's another thing. Thank you, Liz, for the rhino pictures. Just saying. Think about those unicorns as rhinos, and you might have a different perspective. But anyway, this is what I mean. Sometimes you just got to do live streams, and you got to just say stuff out loud, all the things you've been reading and studying. Okay, this Passover, during the week of unleavened bread, there's no leaven. There's no leaven in this week, in this Passover week. But over here on Feast of Weeks, there is leaven. You're supposed to offer the bread with leaven. No leaven? Yes, leaven. No leaven? Yes, leaven. No leaven? Yes, leaven. You're supposed to offer bread with leaven to the Lord? What? I thought leaven was sin. Why would I offer sin to the Lord? So I've been doing some studying on leaven, and I think that leaven is not just, most people would say, yeah, leaven represents sin. And that's like the easy answer. And we kind of all easily agree, and then we walk away. And yes, there is a component of leaven representing sin. But the bigger, deeper meaning of leaven is replace the word with teaching. Okay, teaching. There's the teaching of the Pharisees, which Jesus warned about. And then there's the teaching of Christ. There's the leaven of the kingdom of heaven that Jesus spoke about in the parables. So let me just quickly hit a couple of those leaven verses, and then we'll come back to Feast of Weeks, and then I think you'll see the connection that I'm seeing here. And so we're going to go here. We're going to open up the app here. We'll make it a little bigger, and we'll go. So Matthew 13, verse 33. We got it right here. And I want to first establish that leaven is not necessarily always bad. So we have another parable. It's by itself. It's one verse. Another parable spake he unto them. The kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven. Okay, wait a second. The kingdom of heaven is like leaven. What? What's going on here? So obviously leaven isn't sin. And which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal, till the whole was leavened. So the kingdom of heaven is like leaven. There's, like I said, there's good leaven and there's bad leaven. There's the leaven of Christ, but then there's the leaven of the Pharisees. Let me show you the other parable in Luke when it's talking about leaven. Luke 13. And it does the same thing. It compares the kingdom of heaven to leaven. And again, he said, whereunto shall I liken the kingdom of God? So there's your kingdom of God. It is like leaven. Okay, well, obviously, we're not going to say that the kingdom of God is like sin. So it is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till the whole was leavened. Okay, so there's a teaching of Christ, and then there's the teaching of the Pharisees. Okay, there's the teaching of Christ. There's the good leaven, and then there's the bad leaven. Then there's the leaven of the Pharisees. So let me show you the bad leaven now, the teachings of the Pharisees. So we've got Matthew 16, and that's right here. 16. It's I wrote down 5 through 12. The leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They have this little conversation, but at the end of it all, because he's telling them to beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, the scripture tells us very plainly, then understood they how that he bade them not beware of the leaven of the bread of the Pharisees, but this is because he related to the doctrine of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And what does doctrine mean? G1322, it means instruction. It means the instruction that has been taught. Okay? So you see that? So beware of the instruction of the teachings of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And you'll get that same message in Mark 8:15, and you get that same message in Luke 12, verse 1. And then in 1 Corinthians, it's talking about, all your sexual sins. You guys are nuts. You guys got to behave. But the big thing about 1 Corinthians 5, so he is addressing the sin of their sexual immorality, but also he's also dealing with this word here, your attitude, your glorying is not good. Okay, so he first addresses their sin and their sexual immorality, but then he's addressing their attitude towards it. They're just so prideful. They're boasting so much. So you guys not only are sinning, but your brain and how you're thinking about this is wrong as well. So he's rebuking their thoughts, like their teachings of this as well. And so what he says here in 1 Corinthians is, you glorify, your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven, there's 11, leaveneth the whole lump. So if you guys have this bad attitude, you're going to mess up everybody. So you guys got to, first of all, stop sinning, but then you got to purge out this teaching, this belief, this bad leaven. So he says, purge out therefore the old leaven. Get rid of this old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Christ, our Passover, is sacrificed for us. Right? So he's trying to tie it into unleavened bread a little bit, and how Christ died for us. And you need to get rid of your old leaven. And there's some more leaven words right here. Therefore, let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. And then the last place to show about this leaven is in Galatians 5. And this is an important thing for salvation too, because people like to go back to the law. They like to go back and they want to try and observe every single thing, and they want to try and do everything perfect. But you got to realize you can't do everything perfect. It's by grace through that we are saved. Here it says it's grace. So let's just read a little bit of Galatians 5. But here's the key word leaven in verse 9. But we gotta read before it to understand this a bit more, right? So stand fast, therefore, in the liberty. So we got liberty. How do we have liberty? Wherewith Christ. We have liberty with Christ because he has made us free. He's released us from being a prisoner, right? And be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. Behold, I, Paul, say unto you that if ye be circumcised, Christ shall profit you nothing. It doesn't matter about being circumcised or uncircumcised. For I testify again to every man that is circumcised that he is a debtor to the whole law. Right? And there's like 613 rules or something like that in the Torah. Like you just can't live by the law. There's no way. Christ was perfect. Thank goodness he was perfect because I'm not. So we need Christ. It says here, Christ has become of no effect unto you, whosoever of you are justified by the law. Ooh, that's a powerful verse. Christ has become no effect unto you if you are trying to be justified by the law. You have fallen from grace. Right? So the law is almost like the old leaven. Not that the law is bad, but you can't be justified by the old leaven. Does that make sense? You can't be justified by the old leaven. We certainly want to observe the commandments. We want to do our best, but you cannot be justified by the law. Christ has become of no effect unto whosoever of you are justified by the law. Ye are fallen from grace. That's a very scary place to be in, trying to live by the law. But anyway, going on here. For we, through the Spirit, wait for the hope of righteousness by faith. That's the ticket, by faith. In who? For in Jesus Christ, by faith in Jesus Christ. Neither circumcision availeth anything, nor uncircumcision, but faith which worketh by love. You did run well. You guys did good, but who did hinder you? Who messed you guys up? Who did this? Who was the guy that brought the bad leaven? Who brought the bad leaven of the law? Who told you that you got to be justified by the law? Who brought this bad leaven? Who did this? Who spoke into your words? Because you guys, you're not justified by the law. You're justified by faith in Jesus Christ. Who brought this bad leaven? So he did run well. Who did hinder you that ye should not obey the truth? This persuasion cometh not of him that calleth you. A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. Okay? So it goes on to say, I wish this guy was to cut himself. And that word is... in Greek, it's apokopto, to amputate, reflexively, irony or mutilate the privy parts. So without being too graphic, Paul's very, 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 very mad. He says, if anybody's going to preach the law, I wish they would cut their private parts off. That's how serious he is about this, And so... we cannot live by the law. And he's calling this the bad leaven. He's calling this the bad leaven if you try and live and be justified by the law. So now going back to this picture right here. And oh, here it is. Okay, I'm back. We've got this Passover. And we've got unleavened bread. And we have leavened bread. So the only way that we can enter the kingdom of heaven, this bread, this body, this bread, Jesus says the wine represents my blood, but the bread represents my body. And so here is bread. I'm a bread. I'm a big piece of loaf here. And you guys are all breads. You guys are all pieces of bread, all big loaves of bread. And so this bread, we cannot be presented to the Father without leaven. We can't get there on our own bread. We need something else to enter the kingdom of heaven. We cannot get there on our own bread, our own flour. We need something else. But on Feast of Weeks, we can enter the presence of the Lord if we have the leaven. Which leaven? The leaven of the Pharisees? No. The leaven of Christ. The leaven of grace, the leaven of the message of Christ. And so what we do here is in Passover, when Jesus dies on the cross and he goes through the unleavened bread, he's getting rid of the old understanding of how to be justified. He is making a new covenant with us. He's making a new covenant with us, which is on Passover, but the age covenant changed at the Feast of Weeks. You guys understand what I'm saying here? The old covenant is gone because of what Christ did on Passover. The new covenant began at this time. Isn't that a beautiful thing? The covenant is his rainbow. 7 Sabbaths shall be completed, and on the 50th day, everything will be changed. So the only people that will get raptured is the people that have the leaven of Christ written on their hearts and on their head. And that is so awesome when it's related to the Feast of Weeks. Hope that makes sense. I think that's so cool. This is what makes the Feast of Weeks, like, I haven't seen this stuff in the Feast of Weeks in any years past, but this year, I'm like, whoa, Feast of Weeks is talking about a birth. It's talking about a birth. It's talking about leaven. And in these, whenever you offer the leaven with the bread, you also offer the lambs. There's 7 lambs the first time. Well, the 7 lambs could represent the 7 churches. It's amazing. It's quite incredible. So, there are times when leaven does represent sin, but I think the deeper meaning of leaven is simply a teaching. Right now, I'm giving you guys leaven. I'm talking to you. I'm giving you leaven. I could say something really bad, and it would be bad leaven, and I could say something really good, and it would be good leaven. So leaven is almost like an influence or a teaching. So you want the leaven of Christ. You want to pick Jesus, and that's good leaven. That's the good leaven you want to hear. Okay. So I got so many things to say. Let's go over to Revelation 14. Okay, before I go there, I think that Revelation 7, 14, and 21 are sort of like helicopter chapters in the book of Revelation. I wish I had like a helicopter here or something like that, or something to fly. Okay, pretend that this is a really bad eraser. Okay, let's get something else here. Okay, I don't know. Here's your helicopter. Okay, here's your helicopter. And so Revelation 1 through 6, you're kind of walking on the bottom, and then Revelation 7, you kind of jump up, and then Revelation 8 through 13, you're kind of walking over here, and then Revelation 14, you hop up, and then you go back down, you talk about the details, and then Revelation 21, you pop out again. Okay, so think of it as 3 mountaintops. I see Revelation 7 and 14 and 21 as sort of like lunch breaks in the book of Revelation, and they're kind of pauses in time. They're not necessarily, Revelation is somewhat chronological to a certain extent, but I don't believe it's perfectly in order. But my main point of what I'm saying here is Revelation 7 and 14 are just kind of zoom outs. They're like the zoom out of the big picture, and then you go back in and zoom in again. So having said that, I believe that the rapture is in Revelation 14. That doesn't necessarily mean that doesn't mean that the rapture is in the middle of the tribulation. That's not at all what I believe. I'm just saying that the Revelation 14 is like a bird's eye view of the bigger picture. I believe that we are actually in the throne room before the seals are open, which I don't think they're open yet. So let's go to Revelation 14 and how this ties to potentially the Feast of Weeks. Oh, wait, I'm going to show you my hard copy online. So let's do that. Let's go like this. Let's go like this. Let's go 14. Revelation 14:14. And think about you're on the second mountaintop here. Revelation 14:14. And you're doing a bird's eye view of the whole scene. You're just kind of looking at everything. Okay, you're looking at the whole 7 years here. Okay. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like the Son of Man. The Son of Man. Well, I mean, Jesus also always called himself the Son of Man. Okay, so on the cloud was a Son of Man. Got it. Cloud. Got it. Having on his head a golden crown. Got it. 1 golden crown. Okay, oops, let me highlight that better. 1 golden crown. And in his hand a sharp sickle. Well, a sharp sickle, why do you need a sickle for? What's a sickle used for? It's used for harvesting. harvesting and gathering grain. It's used for plucking, to gather a hook, to harvest sickle. So at the Feast of Weeks, it's the final feast of the harvest. Okay, so and another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, thrust in your sickle. Thrust in your sickle. Well, again, what do you do with sickles? You gather wheat. And reap, for the time is come to thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle and on the earth, and the earth was reaped. Okay, so that's the good news. Praise Jesus. The Son of Man's going to come and sickle and gather us soon, and he's going to have one golden crown. That's the good news. And then right after that, we got the bad news. We got the bad news. And what's this bad news? Another angel came out from the altar, which had the power over him, fire, and cried with a loud voice, or cried with a loud cry to him that the sharp sickle, saying, thrust in thy sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth. For her grapes, are fully ripe. But the grapes, a lot of the grapes are harvested near the fall time, right? And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. Bad news. That's bad news. So the good news comes first in Revelation 14 through 16. But then the bad news comes after. I should have highlighted that from Revelation 14 and 17 and on. And so that's the bad news over here now. And the winepress was trodden without the city, and the blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horses' bridles, by the space of 1,600 furlongs. So if you're looking at Revelation 14 in an aerial view, I'll zoom out a bit just so you can see the aerial view. You see here the first 3 verses is the good news, and the second 3 verses is the bad news, right? So the first 3 verses is the Son of Man comes and harvests the sickle, and it's just a happy story. And then you got the bad news in Revelation 14, verse 17 through 20. The good news is with the harvest of what looks to be the wheat. The bad news is the harvest of the grapes, which is primarily more of a fall thing, a fall feast. So I think that we have a really cool image here of the harvest and the sickle. And so when you go over to Exodus 19, chapter 3, or Exodus chapter 19, you see the time. Well, let's go over there. Let's go over to Exodus 19. You see a cloud, and that's the time when you would harvest the grain. And that's Israel on Mount Sinai. But Exodus 19, verse 9, I'll make it a little bigger. Exodus 19, verse 9, and the Lord said unto Moses, Lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud. But we just saw Jesus in a cloud in Revelation 14. So here he is on a cloud again. That the people may hear when I speak with thee and believe thee forever. And Moses told the words of the people unto the Lord. You know, and I'm going to present something else to you guys. Okay, so the first time we see the trumpet of God in the scripture is in Exodus 19. The phrase trumpet of God. The last time we see the phrase trump of God is on 1 Thessalonians 4:16. So the first and last trump in the Bible, in the context of the words, the first and last trumpet of God, you see in Exodus 19, which is at the Feast of Weeks. And the last time you see this trump of God phrase is our very popular rapture verse in 1 Thessalonians 4:16 through 18. What a cool little rainbow connection there. But here's another one. The last time you see the phrase trumpet of God in the Old Testament is Zechariah 9, verse 14. Now, I don't know. I haven't done enough study on this, so I'm just going to present this, and maybe we'll talk about this more in the future. But at first glance, it does look like the rapture, although I'm not sure because I haven't done a heavy study on this yet. But Zechariah 9:14, look at what it says. And the Lord shall be seen over them, and his arrow shall go forth as lightning, and the Lord God will blow the trumpet. So God shall blow the trumpet. There's that phrase again. And shall go with the whirlwind of the south. The Lord of hosts shall defend them, and they shall devour and subdue with sling stones, and they shall drink and make a noise as though wine, and they shall be filled with like bowls, and as the corners of the altar. So it's interesting that it looks like the Lord will be in the clouds and will be blowing a trumpet in Zechariah 9:14, which is the last time you'll see, the trumpet of God in the Old Testament. I found that to be pretty interesting. You could read further into this, and I'm going to read more into this. I'm not quite sure if this is a rapture thing here or a second coming thing. Not quite sure, but it is interesting to note that it's the trumpet of God in this verse. But going back to Exodus 19, it says here, that, again, we're at the Feast of Weeks timeline here. Exodus 19, 5 through 6. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, here's that covenant word, right? Seems like most covenants happened in the third month. If you go to the book of Jubilees, I'll probably do a future video on that. Then ye shall be a peculiar treasure. Oh, where have we seen that before? Unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests. Oh, wait a second. Where have we heard that before? I'll show you in a second. And a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. Okay, you should be a peculiar treasure. And you should be a kingdom of priests. If you obey my voice and keep my covenant. Peculiar treasure. What's that Hebrew word? I haven't checked it out yet, but it's a segola. It's a jewel or a very special treasure in the kingdom of priests. Well, remember what the priests mean. Okay, so let me just, before I leave this, let's just be really clear of what we're reading before we jump around. Exodus 19 verse 5. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above the people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So holy meaning set apart. You should be Kodesh. You should be set apart. A holy nation, a holy goy. And these are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. All right. So he's establishing his priests here. He's establishing that he's going to make them a special treasure. They say, I do, but then they eventually, break their covenant, right? But 1 Peter chapter 2, it says that we are a peculiar or a special purchased people. And we are a priesthood. And we are whoops, let's go back. I messed up somewhere. Oops. There we go. And we are a priesthood. And we are a holy nation. We are set apart. This is exactly the verbiage that you see in Exodus 19. And it says here in 2 Peter that to whom coming as unto a living stone, disallowed indeed of men, but chosen of God and precious, ye also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house and a holy priesthood. Oh, a priesthood. A holy priesthood. That's what Exodus 19 is talking about, being a holy priesthood. And, and they rejected the chief cornerstone, and you guys are now precious stones. You guys are very precious in the eyes of the Father. Because if you accepted the chief cornerstone, the Father and the Son are one, right? So that's in 2 Peter. Now he's talking about priests. We see this in Revelation 1. We see this in Revelation 1 verse 6. And he hath made us kings and priests unto God. He's talking to the 7 churches. He's talking to us. He's going to make us kings and priests. And in Exodus 19, he says, I'm going to make you priests. And you're going to be very, very precious to me in the kingdom of God. But he's saying that he wants to make them priests. And he's saying that during the Feast of Weeks. Isn't that special? Okay, so if we're priests and we're supposed to be, and he wanted to consecrate them on Exodus 19, the Feast of Weeks, how long do the priests have to be in the temple to be consecrated? Leviticus 8, verse 31. And Moses said unto Aaron and to his sons, boil the flesh at the door. So this is when you're consecrating the priest. Leviticus 8:33. And ye shall not go out of the door of the tabernacle of the congregation 7 days until the days of your consecration be at end. For 7 days shall he consecrate you. So if you're a priest, you must be in the tabernacle for 7 days. That door does not open and it does not shut for 7 days. Okay, there it is. So isn't that a cool thing? But he wanted to consecrate the priests on Feast of Weeks. Very special. Very cool. Very, 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 very cool. And I've said this before, but it's okay. It's good to be repetitive. Numbers 14:34 is a day for a year. After the number of days in which ye search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. So every day in God's mind, a day for a year for rebellion. So every time you see 7 days in the Torah, really, you should think 7 years, because that's what God does. He talks about that in terms of rebellion. And so, so many fun things. So many fun things here. We have, what else do we have here? Yeah, this is another fun thing right here. So Isaiah 28. We'll do that again. Isaiah 28. And let's go. Where is it? There it is. Isaiah 28. This is a really cool one. Isaiah 28, 4 and 5, okay? So, and the glorious beauty which is on the head of the fat valley shall be a fading flower, and as the hasty fruit before the summer. Okay. So, whoa. Okay, let's zoom in here. The hasty fruit, it means the first fruits of the crop. The first fruit, ripe, hasty fruit. But it's a very similar word to bikar or bakar, the same word that is the root word of the Feast of First Fruits that we are talking about in Feast of Weeks. It's the same word that you would use for a firstborn, right? It's properly to burst forth from the womb of the woman, to give the birthright, to make the firstborn, to bring forth the child. So this verse is talking about the hasty fruit, or the firstborn fruit, or in other words, the Feast of Weeks before the summer. Well, the summer equinox is around June 20th. Okay, so and the glorious beauty which is on the head of the fat valley shall be a fading flower, and as the hasty fruit before the summer, which when he that looketh up is it seeth while it is yet in his hand, he eateth it. Okay, here we go. In that day shall the Lord of hosts be for a crown of glory and for a diadem of beauty unto the residue of his people. His people. But the crown of glory, remember in Revelation 14, he's got one crown. He's got one crown in Revelation 14. And here we have, once again, one crown for a crown of glory upon the Son of Man's head, when we're talking about the first fruits before the summer. And we are dealing with, right now, we're looking at a Feast of Weeks before the summer equinox on June 16th. And we're waiting for the Son of Man to come with one crown on his head, to come and sickle the first fruits with the leaven in them, which is the teachings of Christ in their hearts. So we are bread that is ripe, and we've got the leaven of Christ in our hearts, waiting for this harvest. And this word residue is really just means like a select group. It's almost it's another word for a group, unto the group of his people, and we are his people. Okay, and so that was a fun one to see, and to kind of connect that to Revelation 14. And we see another time over here in Jeremiah chapter 24, a very similar thing over here. Jeremiah 24, verse 2. One basket had very good figs. All right, so it had good figs, even like the figs that are first ripe. Whoa. First ripe. What are we talking about, the first ripe? What does that mean? H1073? Okay, well, let's look into it. First ripe is the first ones. Well, that word is bakura. It's the same kind of verbiage and very, very, very similar phrasing to the same word that we see in first fruits for the Feast of Weeks. Jeremiah is calling that this good fruit is related to the same word that is related to Feast of Weeks, the bakar or the bakura. And it is good. But the other basket had very bad figs, and that is not related to the Feast of Weeks. So there's this comparison of the good fruits, thumbs up, and the bad fruits, thumbs down. So we got what the bad fruit is going to be completely like judged and all that kind of stuff. Again, we've got the similar thing to Revelation 14, where the first couple of verses are happy stuff, good figs. Here's the good figs, right? Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, like the good figs, so will I acknowledge them that are carried away captive of Judah, who I have sent out of this place into the land of Chaldeans for their good. But the story changes back down here. He's going to be, it's going to be pretty brutal. So, you know, so many fun things to talk about the Feast of Weeks. And here, we'll do this. Whoops. Yeah, we'll do that. Was there any questions on anything I said? You want me to explain something? Any questions at all that you might want answers to? I'm good looking at all my charts here. Is there anything that I missed or forgot? Yeah, I'm just going to look at the comments a bit. You guys have any thoughts, questions, redirections here? While I'm looking at that, isn't it crazy how the Iranian president died a little while ago? Yeah, I do like 616. I think it's neat. I think it's neat. Of course, I don't know the date, but yeah, nobody knows the date of the rapture, but who knows? What time of the day did Jesus ascend? Thanks, Repo Man. I believe that Jesus went into the grave precisely. I'm talking to North Americans now, so I'm just going to use North American time, just so you guys can understand what I'm saying. Most of you guys are North American. I believe that Jesus went precisely into the grave at dusk. Let's just call it 6 p.m. Okay, it probably might have been like 6:37 or something like that. But just think of it as precise moment of God's dusk. I think he went into the grave precisely at 6 p.m. between Nissan 14 and Nissan 15. That second divides Nissan 14 and Nissan 15. And then 3 days later, I believe that he rose precisely at 6 p.m. at that very second between Nissan 17 and Nissan 18. And so here, I'll show you my little chart. So let's see if can you see that all? So hopefully I'm holding it properly. But I believe that he went into the tomb and on Wednesday 6 p.m. and rose Saturday 6 p.m. and then was witnessed in the dark hours on the Sunday on Nissan 18. And so that's the only way that we can get a pure 3 nights and 3 days in the grave. And Matthew chapter 12 verse 40 speaks. Jesus said, "I'm going to be in the grave 3 days and 3 nights." So I'm taking God at his word. I'm taking Jesus at his word that he actually was in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights. If you slide it over to Thursday, then he was not in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights, a pure one. You got to start doing like half days and stuff like that. But no, I'm not doing that. I think Jesus was in the grave for a perfect 3 days and 3 nights, precisely to the second. I can't buy it. I can't buy the partial days. I'm not going to do it. We know that he rose on a Sunday because that's the day that you would have to offer the first fruits. According to Leviticus 23, verse 11, it must be a Sunday. But Sunday starts at that dusk second. It starts with night. So, if dusk was actually 6 p.m., I believe he rose on that second, and then he was seen by Mary in the morning hours in the dark time, as John 20, verse 1. Mike was talking about ascension, not resurrection. Like in terms of Ascension Day? Is that what Mike was asking? Okay, let me just read. Sure, Jason. Yeah, they might be 75. Okay, if you want to bounce it back a bit, maybe. Yeah, maybe. But I do overall go with the year that they're 1948 being the year that we start. And if you look at the prophecy in the Psalms, do I have my chart here? Yeah, I got my prophecy in the Psalms somewhere over here. But okay, Psalm 70, Psalm 76 to 84, super cool. If you look at Israel's age starting from 1948, Psalm 76 to 84, awesome. Psalm 84 relating to 2032. But really, think of this. If Christ comes back on Day of Atonement in 2031, and then we dedicate the temple at the end of 2031, right? And then his first year of pure reigning would be 2032, because January comes right after the Hanukkah time, right? So when you read the Psalms, you see Psalm 84 and Psalm 132. So you take Psalm 124 to 132 as the Gentile year, and 132 is like, bum, ba, bum, Jesus is reigning and ruling, man. 132 for sure. Like, it's like, wow, that's incredible. So if we're relating the Psalms to the years, solid. And then if you go to use Israel's age from Psalm 76 to Psalm 84, same thing. If you guys read Psalm 132 and Psalm 184 on your own, and you think of that as being like the second coming Jubilee year and all that kind of stuff, and the millennial kingdom, the first year of it, you're going to see it. You're going to see it so clearly. It's so obvious. Well, Israel will be 84 in 2032. So, and then if you read Psalm 79, you're like, bro, that's the midpoint. That's the midpoint, bro. Like, for sure. So it's like, it fits like a glove, man. It fits like a glove. So I call that Prophecy in the Psalms. I did a video on that a couple days ago. It was pretty sweet. Patty said, what time did he ascend to heaven? I'm in the camp that Ascension Day was its own thing. I think that it literally was 40 days after he was seen, because that's what Acts chapter 1 says. But to be honest, I've always liked Ascension Day, but I'm way more gung-ho about the Feast of Weeks that I'm just skipping over Ascension Day, because Feast of Weeks is like, it's just got so much Bible all over the place. It's so incredible. So I don't even know. Maybe around June 5th or 6th or something like that. Maybe 4th. Not quite sure, but Feast of Weeks is the party, guys. It's the party. I think it's a great feast. Do you think Iran could usher in the AC? I think it's so interesting that he died, the Iranian president. I think it's so interesting that we've heard that Russia is doing nuke tests around the U.S. We see about China invading Taiwan. My opinion is, if I'm China, and I see this looming Trump coming in, maybe in the fall, I'd rather take over Taiwan this summer than wait till Trump comes into power and try and take Taiwan when Trump is doing his thing. So I would be pushing for stuff. If I was any country that wanted to do anything, I'd want to start doing stuff this summer, right? I'd want to start really ramping things up like now, You know what? The Feast of Weeks is the same as Pentecost. I lean towards that it is. But you know what I'm doing right now is I'm just calling it Feast of Weeks because I can confidently say that it's called Feast of Weeks, because that's what the Leviticus calls it. So I still want to try and understand what other people are saying about this Feast of Wine in the summer, and I'm trying to just understand and learn and be teachable. But I'm like, okay, you know what? I can safely call it Feast of Weeks because that's a guarantee. It's called Feast of Weeks in the third month. That's a guarantee. So I'm calling it Feast of Weeks with the uncertainty of how to handle the Pentecost thing. So that's where I'm at. So Feast of Weeks is the party. Feast of Shavuot. Yeah. Yeah, there might be lots of 50 counts. I remember reading something about, I did this last year, where I looked up the Essene stuff in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and there is something in the Dead Sea Scrolls that is like, 50 days after Shavuot. So there's something there, but not enough for me to be conclusive about it. Especially, it's also kind of like if it's not in the canonized Bible, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, it's side information. It's interesting. I'm still at a place where I'm not sure about what to consider this Feast of Wine and Pentecost and how to relate it to Feast of Weeks. But like I said, I think it's very, very safe to just call it Feast of Weeks, Feast of Shavuot. And, should we be here much longer if we're still here next year, which who knows? I know that we'll have a better understanding as time goes on. So that's my take. Just call it Feast of Weeks. We're safe with that. I will say this, though, about Pentecost. Oh, here's one thing. Yeah, thanks for asking about Pentecost, because I'm actually going to say something here that is actually might bring more clarity to this. So some people say that Pentecost, the word Pentecost is not 50. They'll say like, well, the translation guys messed it up, and they say that the Pentecost is not 50, it means 5. But let me show you something. And I think this may help. I was doing this study today, Pentecost. Now, where does the word come from? It actually comes from this. G 4040. And I'm just going to take, Luke 16, for example. Luke 16, verse 6. And you'll see something here. And I want to show you a verse in John, actually, okay? And I think this might bring some clarity to this whole subject of Pentecost. So here you see this word 50, okay? And this is not even, we're not talking about Pentecost right now. We're just talking about the word 50. Luke 16, verse 6. And he said, 100 measures of oil, and he said unto him, take thy bill and sit down and quickly and write 50. Okay, so 50. Look at this Greek word. It's pentekante. Pentekanta. Pentekanta. Now, the first word is pente. Pente. So P-E-N-T-E. That means 5. But pentekanta means 50. Now, you know how we say 5 in English, but then we say 5T? We say 50. We add something to the 5 to make it a different number. So penta is 5, but pentekanta is 50. But let me use another example, and I think this will hit the hammer home here as to why where we got this word Pentecost. I think it came from pentekanta. But look at this John 8 here. John 8. Here's a very big deal right here. It's going to be a hard one to get out of this one. John 8, verse 57. Then said the Jews unto him, Thou art not 50 years old. So the Jews are challenging Jesus. And here, I'm going to maybe just try a different translation just to see if there's anyone. They all say 50, right? So the Jews said to him, You're not 50 years old, and you've seen Abraham. So that Jesus is being challenged in John 8, 57. And he says, You're not 50 years old. Yeah. Now, just think about this for a second, okay? Just really zoom in here for a second. Now, if that pentekanta would have meant 5, and 5 only, that would make no logic in this text at all. Okay? So let me just back up a bit here, right? Jesus answered, and he's having a debate with the Pharisees and everything, and he goes, if I honor myself, my honor is nothing. It is my Father that honoreth me, of whom ye say that he is your God. Yet ye have not known him, but I know him, and if I should say I know him not, I shall be a liar, alike unto you. But I know him, and keep his sayings. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see me, to see my day, and he saw it, and was glad. So Abraham, he's saying that Abraham saw my day, and he saw it, and he was glad. And they're like, what are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? Then they said to the Jews then said the Jews unto him, Thou art not yet 50 years old. You're not pentekanta. And hast thou seen Abraham? Okay, so here's the big deal. If pentekanta was 5, that would make this sentence make absolutely no sense. Because obviously he was at least 30 years old when he said this. And they wouldn't say, well, you're not even 5 years old yet. No, that wouldn't make any sense. So pentekanta, Pentecost, must come from the word pentekanta, which means 50. And then you can go through the scripture. There's 7 verses in here when it's talking about 50. And when Jesus was feeding them with the 5,000 or the 4,000, one of those two, he said, sit down in ranks by hundreds and by 50s. So why would he tell them to sit down by hundreds and then in groups of hundreds and then the other group by 5s? That would make no sense in the context of that. So every time we see the word Pentecanta in the New Testament, which is G4004, it's always logical to think of it as the number 50. And so when we see how similar Pentecanta is to the word Pentecost, it's very natural to say, you know what, Pentecost came from the word Pentecanta, right? And here's Pentecost. Oh, it's the word right beside it, Pentecost. So 4005 is Pentecost, Pentecoste, but and there's the 50th. And then the Greek word it comes from G4004, which is Pentecanta. Okay. But again, when you see the word G4004 in the text of the New Testament, you're going to see the number 50 all the time. So Pentecost, I know people, if you just Google it and you go look at and you read Greek, you're not going to actually see this. But when you just go to other scriptures, you're going to see Pentecanta means 50. So, again, there's a 50 thing there, So whether it's 50 days from the Feast of First Fruits when Jesus rose, or if it's 50 days from after Shavuot, okay, either way, it's a 50 of some sort. It's a 50 of some measurement. We do know that there's a 50 measurement from Feast of First Fruits when Jesus rose to the Feast of Weeks, which is always going to be on a Sunday. Okay, so hopefully that brought some clarity to that a little bit. Yeah, there's a lot of information here, right? So I think what we'll do here is we will just end it here and we'll give you a blessing. And so that way people will watch this video after and absorb a lot of the things that were said. There's a lot of information. So I just kind of want to just spew out a lot of information and come back and maybe I'll do some shorter videos in the future. So my eyes are certainly on June 16th, Feast of Weeks. It is the feast right in the middle of the other spring and fall feasts. It's a one-day event. It's a very special event. The timing of the cross, I like 30 or 31 AD, particularly 31 AD, slightly more because of the videos I've made a couple days ago. So pray that we see you in the clouds very soon. Stay positive, stay upbeat, keep on telling people about Christ, pick Jesus, get tight with Christ. And we'll see you in the next video, whenever that is. Love you guys very much. Go Jesus, go.